Okay, so things are about to get a little bit scary. So don't say I didn't warn you. Okay, are you ready? Let's take a deep breath. Here we go. It's time for chapter 4. Lucy's eyelids were feeling heavy. She was exhausted after her busy day helping the kids of Whiffington adjust to life with no grown-ups about. However, even though she felt more tired than she'd ever been before, for some reason she couldn't sleep. She lay on her bed and started to imagine she was sinking peacefully into the mattress, as if it was a fluffy cloud. She closed her eyes, and for a moment she could see her mum perched on the edge of her bed, where she normally sat each night. She'd slip off the hairband holding her hair back, letting her long brown curls fall down past her shoulders as she sipped on their nightly shared mug of cocoa before handing it to Lucy. "Oh, close your eyes, little Lucy Pops," Mrs. Dunstan would say, her brown eyes twinkling. "Feel yourself floating on the fluffiest cloud, light as a feather." "Oh, but Mum, I'm too awake to go to sleep. It's impossible," Lucy would answer. "Impossible isn't real, Lucy Pops. It's just in your mind." Lucy felt the corners of her mouth rise into a little smile at her mum's nickname for her, Lucy Pops. Her dad used to call her this too, before he left. Suddenly the fluffy cloud she was floating on in her mind dissolved, and she was just lying on her cold mattress in her empty room in her empty house, alone. Impossible certainly felt very real. She quickly closed her eyes again in an attempt to get back on that cosy cloud. She tried to imagine her body sinking into it. It was her favourite thing to imagine. But on the night of the day it all began, Lucy's mind just couldn't imagine things right. Her comfy cloud was not as comfy without her mum there. "Where are you, Mum?" Lucy thought, as she rolled onto her side and looked at the full moon through the gap in the curtains as it watched over Whiffington town. Was her mum out there somewhere? Lucy tried to shake the worry out of her head. She rolled this way and that, then this way and this, but neither way was working, so she just settled on her back, staring at the ceiling. Her heart sank as the little glow-in-the-dark stars and planets looked back down at her. Her dad had once arranged them into a giant smiley face on the ceiling. Lucy realised that there were reminders of her parents dotted all over her room. Out of the corner of her eye she could see the certificate presented by her dad on the day she broke the family jelly baby eating record, gulping down 27 in 30 seconds. Even the green ones. She turned away from the wall, but this put her face to face with the bookcase, which was overflowing with all the stories her mum would read with her. The absence of her mum made it very quiet in her house, unusually quiet, so quiet in fact that the silence was almost loud. Lucy tried humming a little song to herself, a lullaby, but it didn't help. It just reminded her of her dad. "Time for a song, Lucy Pops," she pictured him saying as he reached into his pocket for his most prized possession, his silver harmonica. "Any requests?" he always asked, but Lucy knew he was teasing because he always played the same song. It was one he'd written himself, and it was called Lucy's Lullaby. He played it to her every night until he disappeared. Lucy sighed. She got out of bed and walked over to her wardrobe, but just as she was about to open the door she heard a tiny noise. It sounded like the creak of her floorboards. Lucy suddenly felt a little chill, a shiver running down her back, like someone was watching her. Which you already know is true, but Lucy doesn't know that yet. "Hello," she called. She looked over her shoulder, but there was no one there. "Don't be such a silly sausage, Lucy," she whispered firmly to herself. "You're just getting the chills because you're alone. Now pull yourself together." With that, she opened her wardrobe and lifted a wooden panel on the floor, which revealed a secret hiding place. This was where she kept special things she didn't want anybody else to find. There wasn't much in it. A pretty shell she'd found at the beach once, a smashed up conker that had got her to second place in the playground conker championships, and a framed photograph. She picked it up and stared at it. 3 people smiled up at her from the picture. A young Lucy with her arms wrapped around her mother's neck as she kissed Lucy on the top of her head, and behind them both, cradling the 2 most precious things in his life, Lucy's dad. Lucy's heart ached every time she looked at it. She looked at this photo and she could see how happy the 3 of them were. She always made an extra effort to study her dad's face, as if she was afraid that somehow she might forget him. She held the photo close so that she could see every detail. She saw his eyes, which were a deep, twinkling blue. His nose, which was a little bit big, a little bit like hers really. His mouth, which looked like it might break into a smile and make the dimple in his cheek appear at any moment. She smiled to herself and hugged the photo to her chest. There was one more thing hidden in Lucy's secret hiding place, folded neatly underneath the other treasures. It was a bright fluorescent green colour and was giving off an awful stench of stewed sprouts and fish scales. Lucy pulled out her dad's stinking work coat, the one he had worn when he was driving the big pongy rubbish truck. She'd kept it hidden in here so her mum wouldn't find it and throw it away like the rest of her dad's stuff. Lucy slid her arms into the sleeves and put on the bright, smelly jacket. It was far too big and engulfed her like a stinky fluorescent duvet. She sat down, her back against her wardrobe, and took a deep breath. The disgusting fumes filled her nostrils with comforting memories of her dad, and she suddenly felt a little bit better. She snuggled into the coat and made herself comfy. She made herself comfy on the floor. As she wriggled, something fell out of its pocket and clunked loudly on the floorboards, something silver and shiny. It was her dad's harmonica. She picked it up, smiling, and played Lucy's lullaby. As best as she could, anyway. It wasn't as magical as when her dad played it, but it melted away some of her troubles, at least for a moment. When she finished, she held it tight in her hands and stared at the reflection on its shiny surface. She saw her face looking back at her. Then she tilted it slightly and saw the moon through the curtains. A little more and she saw her bedside table, then her bed, and then the beady black eyes of the creature hiding under it. What? Lucy looked up from the harmonica and stared into the blackness of the shadowy gap beneath her bed, but the watching eyes had gone. Her heart was racing. No, it was sprinting in her chest. Had she imagined it? Or had there really been a pair of shiny eyes looking at her from underneath the bed? Lucy wanted to stand up, but she couldn't. She was frozen to the spot, frozen with fear. She was completely on her own in her dark bedroom, in her quiet house, in the middle of the night, with a creature lurking under her bed. And things were about to get even weirder. Oh, come back next time and we'll see what it is.